Hey y'all, it's Kim. So this is again the report of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence Committee study of the Central Intelligence Agency's detention and interrogation program. Again, after 9/11, suspected terrorists were detained for extended periods and tortured according to this report. I don't know how you feel about that, but anyway, it's like, is it? I don't know. I don't know. Whatever. We'll just go on. We'll start a timer. That way, it's not just overdone. We'll do about, I don't know, 20 minutes. See what we can get done. So, on April 15th, 2002, per a scripted plan, the same CIA interrogator delivered what a CIA cable described as the pre-move message to Abu Zubaydah that time is running out, that his situation had changed, and that the interrogator was disappointed that Abu Zubaydah did not signal to discuss the one thing he was hiding. Abu Zubaydah was sedated and moved from the hospital to detention site Green. When Abu Zubaydah awoke at 11 p.m., 4 hours after his arrival, he was described as surprised and disturbed by his new situation. In April 16th, 2002, cable states the objective is to ensure that Abu Zubaydah is at his most vulnerable state. A cable described Abu Zubaydah's cell as white with no natural lighting or windows, but with 4 halogen lights pointed into the cell. An air conditioner was also in the room. A white curtain separated the interrogation room from the cell, and the interrogation cell had 3 padlocks. Abu Zubaydah was also provided with one of 2 chairs that were rotated based on his level of cooperation, one described as more comfortable than the other. Security officers wore all black uniforms, including boots, gloves, balaclavas, I guess that's how you say that, and goggles to keep Abu Zubaydah from identifying the officers, as well as to prevent Abu Zubaydah from seeing the security guards as individuals who he may attempt to establish a relationship or dialogue with. The security officers communicated by hand signals when they were with Abu Zubaydah and used handcuffs and leg shackles to maintain control. In addition, either loud rock music was played or noise generators were used to enhance Abu Zubaydah's sense of hopelessness. Abu Zubaydah was typically kept naked and sleep deprived. In April 16th, 2002, Cable explained that the interrogation strategy had shifted since Abu Zubaydah's medical condition prevented total isolation as originally planned. According to the cable, a 24-hour interrogation strategy was now deemed to be the best approach for acquiring information. As a result, the FBI officers were once again allowed to question Abu Zubaydah. On April 17th, 2002, an FBI officer met with Abu Zubaydah for 6 hours. FBI records state that Abu Zubaydah had not seen the interviewing FBI agent since April 11th, 2002, but that Abu Zubaydah greeted the agent by name. During the questioning, Abu Zubaydah denied any knowledge related to specific targets for a pending attack and advised that many of the brothers on the front lines, NFI, no further information, talked about all types of attacks against America, but for the most part, this was usually just talk, and that the United States should not be concerned about this type of talk. Abu Zubaydah provided information on Al Qaeda, KSM, his past travel to the United States, as well as general information on extremists in Pakistan. Abu Zubaydah continued to provide information to interrogators through April of 2002, but not information on pending attacks against the United States. On the evening of April 20th, 2002, Abu Zubaydah told the FBI officers about 2 men who approached him with the plan to detonate a uranium-based explosive device in the United States. Abu Zubaydah stated he did not believe the plan was viable and did not know the names of the 2 individuals, but provided physical descriptions of the pair. This information was acquired after Abu Zubaydah was confronted with emails indicating that he had sent the 2 individuals to KSM. The CIA would later represent that this information was acquired as a result of the use of CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques, and that the information acquired resulted in the thwarting of the dirty bomb plot and the capture of Jose Padilla. However, the chief of the Abu Zubaydah task force stated that AZ's info alone would never have allowed us to find them, while another CIA officer stated that the CIA was already alert to the threat posed by Jose Padilla and that the CIA's suspicion was only enhanced during the debriefing of Abu Zubaydah. Additional information on the dirty bomb plot and the capture of Jose Padilla is provided later in the summary. During the month of April 2002, which included a period during which Abu Zubaydah was hospitalized on life support and unable to speak, the CIA disseminated 39 intelligence reports based on the interrogations. At the end of April 2002, the detention site Green interrogation team provided CIA headquarters with 3 interrogation strategies. CIA headquarters chose the most coercive interrogation option, which was proposed and supported by CIA contractor Swigert. This coercive interrogation option, which included sensory deprivation, was again opposed by the FBI special agents at the detention site. The interrogation proposal was to engage in only a single-minded, consistent, totally focused questioning of current threat information. Once implemented, this approach failed to produce the information CIA headquarters believed Abu Zubaydah possessed, threats to the United States, and information about Al-Qaeda operatives located in the United States. Nonetheless, Abu Zubaydah continued to provide other intelligence. In May of 2002, the CIA disseminated 56 intelligence reports based on the interrogations. In early June of 2002, the CIA interrogation team recommended that Abu Zubaydah spend several weeks in isolation while the interrogation team members departed the facility as a means of keeping Abu Zubaydah off balance and to allow the team needed time off for a break and to attend to personal matters. Redacted, as well as to discuss the endgame of Abu Zubaydah, redacted, with officers from CIA headquarters. As a result, from June 18, 2002 through August 4, 2002, Abu Zubaydah spent 47 days in isolation without being asked any questions, despite the fact that Abu Zubaydah was in isolation for nearly half of the month. The CIA disseminated 37 intelligence reports based on the interrogation of Abu Zubaydah in June of 2002. The CIA would later represent publicly, as well as in classified settings, that during the use of established U.S. government interrogation techniques, Abu Zubaydah stopped all cooperation in June of 2002, requiring the development of the CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques. CIA records do not support this assertion. Prior to Abu Zubaydah's 47-day isolation period, Abu Zubaydah provided information on Al-Qaeda activities, plans, capabilities, and relationships, in addition to information on its leadership structure, including personalities, decision-making processes, training, and tactics. As described in more detail in the full committee study, Abu Zubaydah's inability to provide information on the next attack in the United States and operatives in the United States served as the basis for CIA representations that Abu Zubaydah was uncooperative, as well as for the CIA's determination that Abu Zubaydah required the use of what would later be known as the CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques to become compliant and reveal the information the CIA believed he was withholding. Abu Zubaydah never provided this information, and CIA officers later concluded that this was information Abu Zubaydah did not possess. After Abu Zubaydah was placed in isolation, the Abu Zubaydah interrogation team, redacted, departed the country. Security and medical personnel remained at the detention site. the FBI special agents did not return to detention site Green. So, proposal by CIA contract personnel to use SERE-based interrogation techniques leads to the development of CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques. The CIA determines that the interrogation process takes precedence over preventive medical procedures. Ooh. In early July 2002, CIA officers held several meetings at CIA headquarters to discuss the possible use of novel interrogation methods on Abu Zubaydah. During the course of those meetings, Swigert proposed using techniques derived from the U.S. military's SERE, Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape School. Swigert provided a list of 12 SERE techniques for possible use by the CIA: the attention grasp, walling, facial hold, facial slap, cramped confinement, wall standing, stress positions, sleep deprivation, waterboard, use of diapers, use of insects, and mock burial. Swigert also recommended that the CIA enter into a contract with Hammond Dunbar, his co-author of the CIA report on potential Al-Qaeda interrogation resistance training, to aid in the CIA interrogation process. Like Swigert, Dunbar had never participated in a real-world interrogation. His interrogation experience was limited to the paper he authored with Swigert and his work with the U.S. Air Force personnel at the SERE school. I mean, I don't know how people feel about that, because it's like, yes, this guy obviously wasn't involved necessarily with the actual like towers falling in New York, but if he had something to do with the planning, then I could see him having some interrogation. I won't say torture, because it's like I don't know how to feel about that. That's pretty bad. I wouldn't want it to happen to me. Let's just put it that way. But I wouldn't go around breaking the law and doing stuff either. So I don't know. Anyway, let's keep going. Okay, so in May 2003, a senior CIA interrogator would tell personnel from the CIA's Office of Inspector General that Swigert and Dunbar's SERE school model was based on resisting North Vietnamese physical torture and was designed to extract confessions for propaganda purposes from U.S. airmen who possessed little actionable intelligence. The CIA, he believed, needed a different working model for interrogating terrorists, where confessions are not the ultimate goal. After the July 2002 meetings, CIA's redacted CTC local or legal redacted drafted a letter to Attorney General John Ashcroft asking the Department of Justice for a formal declination of prosecution in advance for any employees of the United States, as well as any other personnel acting on behalf of the United States who may employ methods in the interrogation of Abu Zubaydah that otherwise might subject those individuals to prosecution. The letter further indicated that the interrogation team had concluded that the use of more aggressive methods is required to persuade Abu Zubaydah to provide the critical information we need to safeguard the lives of innumerable innocent men, women, and children within the United States and abroad. The letter added that these aggressive methods would otherwise be prohibited by the torture statute, apart from potential reliance upon the doctrines of necessity or of self-defense. This letter was circulated internally at the CIA, including to Swigert. However, there are no records to indicate it was provided to the Attorney General. On July 13, 2002, redacted CTC legal, redacted, and the CIA's acting general counsel, John Rizzo, met with attorneys from the National Security Council and the Department of Justice Office of Legal Counsel, or the OLC, as well as with Michael Chertoff, the head of the Department of Justice Criminal Division, and Daniel Levin, Levin, the chief of staff to the FBI director, to provide an overview of the CIA's proposed interrogation techniques and to ask for a formal, definitive DOJ opinion regarding the lawfulness of employing the specific CIA interrogation techniques against Abu Zubaydah. The CIA attorneys described the 12 proposed interrogation techniques and told the Department of Justice and National Security Council attorneys that Abu Zubaydah continued to withhold critical intelligence on the identities of Al Qaeda personnel in the United States and planned Al Qaeda attacks. The CIA attorneys also told the group that the CIA officers were complemented by expert personnel retained on contract who possess extensive experience gained within the Department of Defense on the psychological and physical methods of interrogation and the resistance techniques employed as countermeasures to such interrogation. According to the CIA cable describing the meeting, the representatives from the OLC, including Deputy Assistant Attorney General John Yoo, advised that the criminal prohibition on torture would not prohibit the methods proposed by the interrogation team because of the absence of any specific intent to inflict severe physical or mental pain or suffering. On July 13, 2002, Yoo sent an unclassified letter to the CIA's acting general counsel describing the interpretation of the statute. Despite the initial view expressed by Yoo that the use of the proposed CIA interrogation techniques would be lawful, on July 17, 2002, National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice requested a delay in the approval of the interrogation techniques for Abu Zubaydah's interrogation until the Attorney General issued an opinion. The following day, Rice and Deputy National Security Advisor Stephen Hadley requested that the Department of Justice delay the approval of the memo detailing the next phase of interrogations until the CIA provided specific details on its proposed interrogation techniques and an explanation of why the CIA is confident these techniques will not cause lasting and irreparable harm to Abu Zubaydah. Rice asked the CIA to provide the OLC with a description of each of the planned interrogation techniques and to gather and provide any available empirical data on the reactions and likelihood of prolonged mental harm from the use of the waterboard and the staged burial. Oh my goodness. Okay, so on July 15th, 2002, the cable providing details on the proposed interrogation phase stated that only the detention site Green chief of base would be allowed to interrupt or stop the interrogation in process. And the chief of base will be the final decision-making authority as to whether the CIA's interrogation techniques applied to Abu Zubaydah would be discontinued. The CIA officers at the detention site added, if Abu Zubaydah develops a serious medical condition, which may involve a host of conditions, including a heart attack or another catastrophic type of condition, all efforts will be made to ensure that proper medical care will be provided to him. In the event Abu Zubaydah dies, we need to be prepared to act accordingly, keeping in mind the liaison equities involving our hosts. To address these issues, the cable stated that if Abu Zubaydah were to die during the interrogation, he would be cremated. The interrogation team closed the cable by saying, regardless which disposition option will follow, however, and especially in light of the planned psychological pressures techniques to be implemented, we need to get reasonable assurances that Abu Zubaydah will remain in isolation and incommunicado for the remainder of his life. Officers from the CIA's Alex station responded to the interrogation team's comments several days later. Their cable noted that the interrogation team was correct in its understanding that the interrogation process takes precedence over preventive medical procedures. Alex station further observed, there is a fairly unanimous sentiment within HQs that Abu Zubaydah will never be placed in a situation where he has any significant contact with others and or has the opportunity to be released. While it is difficult to discuss specifics at this point, all major players are in concurrence that Abu Zubaydah should remain incommunicado for the remainder of his life. This may preclude Abu Zubaydah from being turned over to another country, but a final decision regarding his future incarceration condition has yet to be made. As a result of the request by National Security Advisor Rice for additional research on the CIA's proposed interrogation techniques, CIA and DOJ personnel contacted individuals at the Department of Defense's Joint Personnel Recovery Agency, the agency that administers the SERE school, to gather information about the effects of using the techniques in training exercises. According to the CIA officer redacted, who had redacted, joined the CIA's OTS after redacted years at JPRA, and individual of the SERE school experience commented that information gleaned via harsh treatment may not be accurate, as a prisoner may say anything to avoid further pain, and that current doctrine for interrogations conducted in the permanent phase of capture may lead towards soft or indirect rounds of questioning. Pursuant to National Security Advisor Rice's request, CIA headquarters personnel also requested information from the interrogation team, particularly Swigert and Dunbar, about the psychological effects of the use of the waterboard and mock burial. The chief of base at Detention Site Green responded by cable noting, "We are a nation of laws and we do not wish to parse words. The bottom line in considering the new measures proposed is that Abu Zubaydah is being held in solitary confinement against his will without legal representation as an enemy of our country, our society, and our people. Therefore, while the techniques described in headquarters meetings and below are administered to student volunteers in the U.S. in a harmless way with no measurable impact on the psyche of the volunteer, we do not believe we can assure the same here for a man forced through these processes and who will be made to believe this is the future course of the remainder of his life." Station Detention Site Green Chief of Base and Detention Site Green personnel will make every effort possible to ensure that a subject is not permanently, physically, or mental harmed, but we should not say at the outset of this process that there is no risk. As former psychologists of the United States Air Force, Swigert and Dunbar had no direct experience with the waterboard, as it was not used in Air Force SERE training. Nonetheless, they indicated that the waterboard, which they described as an absolutely convincing technique, was necessary to overwhelm Abu Zubaydah's ability to resist. They also responded that they were aware that the Navy, which used the waterboard technique in training, had not reported any significant long-term consequences on individuals from its use. Unlike the CIA's subsequent use of the waterboard, however, the U.S. or the Navy's use of the technique was a single training exercise and did not extend to multiple sessions. Swigert and Dunbar wrote, "Any physical pressure applied to extremes can cause severe mental pain or suffering. Hooding, the use of loud music, sleep deprivation, controlling darkness and light, slapping, walling, or the use of stress positions taken to extreme can have the same outcome. The safety of any technique lies primarily in how it is applied and monitored." So I'm going to stop here. Of course, it cut off in the middle again. I don't know what the hell's going on unless it's my internet, but you'll see like a little glitch. But I try to piece them together so it, has a transition period or whatever. It's not so noticeable. But anyway, I'll talk to y'all later. Have a good afternoon. Bye.